with stuff. So seafood is just, it was there. It's in the bay, and then you have the Atlantic Ocean, which is off the coast, and then you have a lot of rivers and, you know, lakes, and there's a lot of bodies of water, so it's like seafood and fish. I mean, you're not going to say, like, freshwater fish are really seafood because it's not the sea, but, like, the fishing industry, and then the seafood, and the crustaceans, and obviously the crab and the oyster are the kings, especially the crab, but oyster very much too. I was never a huge... I'm actually trying, after all these years, I'm trying to learn to enjoy oysters more. I haven't been an oyster person. My father was a huge oyster man, and my brother Dave is huge, and I'm trying. But crabs, oh my gosh. I mean, steamed crabs, crab cakes, anything crab involved. But a lot of seafood, shrimp, and clams, and mussels, and the oysters, and fishing, rockfish, which are striped bass from the bay, and a lot of different fish. But it's seafood, and boating has always been... And I always have felt like Maryland's been very, like, drawn to the water. Most people that I've known have some kind of connection to wanting to go to the ocean at some point, or at least be around the water. I think it's like a really a state that, like, they're very, you know, a lot of people are very interested in that side of it.
Yeah. I would say the seafood in Baltimore has turned me into a seafood snob. There's nothing better, honestly. I compare it to everything. It's that good.
Well, I know she didn't mean to do it today, but and she wasn't trying to do it at all, but so our niece Emmy was down from Baltimore today, and she said something about Old Bay, which is the season, like kind of the main seasoning that they put on crabs in Maryland, and she was under the impression that it was just a Maryland thing. Like, what? You have seafood in Virginia? Or you have Old Bay? Like, yeah, we do. I mean, they don't remember sometimes, having lived in both states, they don't remember that there's as much of the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia as there is in Maryland. Mm-hmm. It's the same body of water, so it's going to, you know, all that stuff is big down here, too.
Obviously not as big, but...
I mean, I don't know.
There's nothing like the seafood up there, though.
No, I agree. But I know that seafood is big down here, too.
Oh, yeah. All right. Let's move on.
So what's our next topic?
Let's move on to the accent of Baltimore. That's always a big thing.
Well, you know, I never really heard about no accent up there. You know, we talk the way we do. And we like, you know, sitting out on the stoop on a summer evening with a glass of Natty Boh. You know what Natty Boh is, John? A glass of Natty Boh, and listening to the O's game on the radio, and just enjoying the cool breezes coming off the harbor. And hopefully we don't see no bullets fly, and see the ambulance pass by, whiz by us, or the police chasing nobody. But
the Baltimore
I don't know what accent you're talking about.
The Baltimore accent is distinct, and I love to hear it, especially from Aunt Lisa.
Right. You know, I don't detect no accent on me here, but I think there might be. Actually, yeah. I don't have any kind of a thick Baltimore accent at all, but I think there's certain words that I might say, or a way I say things that I've been told there's something there, but I don't know.
I mean, a lot of people don't really recognize their own accents.
Right.
So, I mean, some people will be like, I don't even have an accent, but you do. You have an accent to everyone. So, all right.
Yeah, so that's just something we always kind of joke about and stuff.
Let's talk about We can talk more about the Inner Harbor and the stadiums and whatnot, because that makes up a lot of the better part of Baltimore, if you want to put it that way. It's grown in popularity.
It's, you have to have an attraction, sort of, like, and there's a lot of attractions, like in most cities, or most places you go to. Some of the most interesting places aren't the first ones you think of, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And when I was a little kid, we used to drive through with my parents on our way to visit the grandparents. And we used to drive through the area now, which is like a show place. But at that point, none of that stuff was there. It was a real just working shipping port, and it was kind of dark, and it wasn't very inviting to people, and we just kind of drive through there as quick as possible. And we had a mayor in the early 70s who, just embraced the makeover of Baltimore, and it started down in that area, and it just progressed from there. And at some point, I would say in the early 80s, Baltimore started to get this reputation for, hey, look at this area down here. You're on the water. There's really great seafood. There's places to shop. You can walk around and feel pretty safe. And then it went from there. I mean, at that point, the stadiums were not there. It was old Memorial Stadium, which was uptown a little bit, probably, 15 to 20 minutes away from the harbor. So then when they put the stadium complexes, and they're, kind of adjoining each other, it just opened up a lot of businesses, and it just brought people down there.
You can walk from an Orioles or Ravens game down in the Inner Harbor within minutes.
Right. And a lot of people, they make a whole day of it, or even more at times. Sometimes, a lot of people come from out of town, and they stay in the hotels down there, and they do a couple days or whatever, and they go to an Orioles game or two, and then they check out the museums and the harbor and the food, and it's pretty good. I've been proud of it since it all happened.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some of the notable people from Baltimore, like Edgar Allan Poe and Thurgood Marshall and Mama Cass from the Mamas and the Papas. We can talk a little bit about them if you would like to.
So,
because they're part of the traditions of Baltimore, too.
Edgar Allan Poe, that's
huge.
Obviously, one of the most famous American writers. Actually ended up having a fairly tragic life, but, he's buried there, and a lot of his traditions, his writings occurred there, and that's basically where the football team got their name from, and even one of their mascots is named Poe. So, but of course, and Edgar Allan Poe goes back to the late 1800s. I don't know. I don't think he really reached the 1900s, but late 1800s. So a great writer, without question. Thurgood Marshall, and there's a lot of people. I'm just probably going to end up just forgetting a ton of them. Thurgood Marshall, great civil rights leader, first black Supreme Court justice, was involved with a lot of the civil rights legislation and the decisions that were made. Was on the Supreme Court for a long time. There's just people in the entertainment business, like you said, even before I get into the rock stuff, Billie Holiday, who's a great female blues singer. Also tragic life, unfortunately, eventually, but born in Baltimore. There's a guy named Cab Calloway that if you could see him late in his career in the Blues Brothers. He's in the Blues Brothers. Those guys like Belushi and Aykroyd, they purposely went back and contacted a lot of these people that were like soul and blues and that whose careers were sort of stalled or like in the past a little bit, brought him back on. But Cab Calloway was a great like band leader, like big famous in the like 20s, 30s, 40s. Used to perform. There was a lot of live theaters in Baltimore back in those days where they would, they would bring in lots of live acts to play. Even my mother, the Lyric is a opera house, and my mother actually performed at the Lyric.
Yes, she did.
Frank Zappa, Mama Cass Elliot, David Byrne of the Talking Heads. God, I knew I was gonna forget.
There's a ton of people.
There really are. I feel like there's like actors and actresses and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
you could talk about it forever, really.
Yeah, I just wish I could recall more off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm always proud of those people, though.
Yeah, of course. All right. So a lot of people.
Joan Jett.
Oh yeah.
She's a huge Orioles fan.
She's she is.
Orioles fan, and I can't forget this. Still to this day, at the 7th inning stretch of the Oriole games, they still play "Thank God I'm a Country Boy" by John Denver, who that started in the late 70s with Oriole Magic, and in the 83 World Series, John Denver performed live at the World Series, "Thank God I'm a Country Boy," and Baltimore went wild, absolutely wild.
That's still a thing in 2015, 7th inning stretch. That's one of
really
our traditions too, yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah. But we could talk about famous people from Baltimore all day. There's so many of them, and I always get excited when I hear.
I wish I could think of more because I know.
Yeah,
there's
a lot.
Like,
there's a lot. A lot of notable people from Baltimore, but we could talk about that for days. But I'm always proud when I hear about people being from there and then rising to the top of whatever they're doing. Makes you a little bit proud of your hometown.
Right.
But let's talk about the inferiority complex that Baltimore seems to feel to DC, because that seems to be a bit of a trend, a little bit.
Well, that's a with some people that's a touchy subject, but
oh yeah,
but then other people would say it doesn't even exist. I think at least it has existed in the past. I don't know if it still does as much or not, but yeah, it's like two major cities, but the city to the south, I mean, it's the capital of the entire country. It's a little hard to, for any city
to compete with that,
especially when you're not like New York or Los Angeles. You're more of a Baltimore's more of a. It's a big city, but it's a
blue collar city.
Well, it's a blue collar city, but as far as like size, it doesn't compete with New York, L.A., Chicago. But it's, and I don't even, maybe Detroit. I don't know. But it's still it's a big city, but it's on the lower end of size wise. Washington D.C. is not big either. But it's just got all the power is there. I mean, it's nobody can really necessarily compete against that. So there's always just been this thing where we have this city, 35 miles down the road that's snooty and thinks they're better than everybody else, and Baltimore is a blue collar city. Doesn't. Of course, there's the upper class there, and all that, like anywhere, but most people are very down to earth. And let's face it, there's a lot of people in D.C. who are very